Have you ever put somebody in the friend zone and just assumed that they were going to stay there? So tomorrow is actually my 10-year wedding anniversary, and it got me to thinking, how did we even get here? My husband and I have been married now tomorrow 10 years, and we were friends for 10 years before we ever dated. All in all, we've been together in totality 16 years this November. And so we have had quite the journey to getting here. And I'm going to tell you what I've learned about getting your friend out of the friend zone and the takeaways from that. We actually met when I was in ninth grade and he was a junior in high school. We were friends for many years. He actually went off to college and we went on to live full separate lives. We kept in touch here and there, but it was more of like a distant friendship at the time because he was out of state. And of course, I also had my life to live. We were always platonic. It was never anything other than that. So I want to make that clear. He was deep in the friend zone. Um, I hate to even say it, but at one point I kind of felt like he was like that big brother type. He hates when I say that. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna say that, but he does not like that. So he eventually came back after going to college and we remained friends, but we never really got to see each other at all. It wasn't until years after him being back that for some reason my internet was giving me some issues and I was in college online and I obviously needed access to the internet. And I remember from when I was in high school that he lived literally like 5 minutes from where I was living at the time in my apartment. And so I reached out to him and we hadn't really talked that much up until that point. Like we had kind of lost touch a little bit, but there was always that friendship there. And I just knew that he was the type of person that wouldn't think it was weird that I was reaching out. And so I had asked him, like, do you mind if I come use your internet? And he was completely fine with it. And it just worked out because he was also in school, online college. And so went to his house, and it had been a couple nights that I had gone over there to do my schoolwork because I worked really late. At the time, I was working like a 3:30 to 11:15 p.m. job, and it was weird hours. It was like Sunday through Thursday, and so like he would allow me to come over and do my schoolwork, which was cool because we would just, I feel like schoolwork is easier when you have somebody else also suffering. And so I would go over there and I would do my schoolwork. But it was a few nights in, and I remember I was sitting on the couch and he was at his like computer desk doing his work. And a commercial came on for Applebee's. And Applebee's has not sponsored this video at all. But a commercial came on for Applebee's, and in the commercial there was the brownie sundae. And I remember just casually mentioning, like, oh my gosh, I love brownie sundaes. And then that was the start and the end of that conversation. Like, it wasn't really anything to, further discuss. I just, in passing, said I love brownie sundaes. So now, fast forward, it's around Halloween time. Mind you, I started hanging out with him like mid October. So now it's Halloween. And I remember he texted me randomly like again a few days later, texted me and was like, hey, are you home? And I said, yeah, I'm getting ready for work, because mind you, again, I worked in the afternoons. And so he was like, hey, I'm gonna come by to bring something for you. And so I was just like, okay, very random, but okay. And he came to my house, well, my apartment, and he was wearing a Ghostbusters outfit, like proton pack, the whole 9 yards. And he had a brownie sundae. And I remember thinking, like, thank you. Like, I didn't really know, like, what was the reason? Like, why are you bringing me this brownie sundae? I know it's like a sweet gesture, but like, why? Because it wasn't clear. Because I also didn't want to overread the situation. So I thanked him. He went on his way in his Ghostbusters outfit and he went back to work. And then I immediately called my friend and it was like, Nate just showed up with a brownie sundae. And I kind of gave her the gist of what I'm giving you, of like that he brought this for me and it's kind of weird, I don't know what's happening. And I just remember her saying, like, sometimes the best relationships are from friendships. And I'm like, I feel like we're jumping the gun here. And I just didn't want to just guess that that's what this was. That's what was happening. At this point in my life, I had already had relationships that failed for various reasons, as did he. And I didn't want to risk whatever this was ruining a friendship that we had already built. And so I also didn't want to assume and embarrass myself. But come to find out, like a few more times that we hung out, I kind of avoided bringing up the brownie sundae at this point, just because I didn't, if he wanted to talk about it, we would talk about it. But I didn't want to be like, what was that about? And so, or, how it can be like, what does this mean? I didn't want to do that. So I played it cool. And I also wasn't quite there yet because, again, he was Nate. Like that's how I saw him, like my friend Nate. And I didn't want to ruin 10 years of friendship at that point in time. I remember being at his house because I still needed access to that internet. And he, at one point, had asked me, now this is when things started to kind of like accelerate, where I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. He asked me, can I kiss you? And I remember telling him no. And I feel so bad now in hindsight, but I told him no. Because what? What are you talking about? No. I told him no. And he was very respectful, which also is like, I appreciate that, He never made me uncomfortable, never pushed the matter, never got weird, like now we can't be friends. And so just because he was so respectful and patient, I think that started to really help me kind of come around. And it's just so funny because, we get in our heads as to timing of things, and it just goes to show things don't necessarily unfold when you want it. But when it's your time, like, I feel like the universe nudges you. And the reason I even say it like that is because, like, of all the people for me to call to use their internet, I could have called any other friend, but for some reason, something nudged me to randomly reach out to him. And at the time, it made no sense as to why I chose him. I ended a relationship, a year prior, and he had been in a relationship most of that time too with someone else, and they had ended their relationship, and everything just aligned the way it needed to at that time. I just remember him saying that he would be patient, and I really respected that he was being respectful of me. But it just, again, it goes to show that, like, your time is yours. Like, it's going to unfold the way it's supposed to. If you want to know what the relationship has been like transitioning from friends to boyfriend and girlfriend to married life, I would say the one big thing, if you're going to make that transition, is one thing for me, that transition was a little difficult for the fact of, not even romantically, it was difficult because I went from being like, oh, he should know I don't like that because, like, we've been friends for 10 years. And I think that mindset was a hard switch because he had never been my boyfriend. How was he to know that I didn't like when my boyfriends did XYZ, That's something I had to work on because I kept saying, like, he should know. Why wouldn't he know that? He knows me, but he only knew me as a friend. He didn't know me as a girlfriend. And also he had his preconceived notions of things that he brought, baggage or whatever that he brought from other relationships. And so we both had to learn each other in that way. And so I think you kind of want to put a pin in the idea that, like, my friend should know that. Yes, there's a lot of things that they should know and they will know, but they're not going to know everything just because they've been your friend for 10 years. But that brings me now to tomorrow being our 10-year wedding anniversary. And it's been quite the ride, and highly recommend marrying your best friend. I think one thing I've realized is a lot of us assume that if something is meant to be, that it's supposed to be easy and it's supposed to arrive in a certain way. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think sometimes you have to loosen up a little bit and get out of your own way and let things unfold the way that they're supposed to. I also think that the universe often gives you little nudges, and you have to be able to accept those little nudges and those feelings and those tingles, not tingles. So what? We're gonna have to start over. Maybe you do need to accept the tingles, you know? A little tingle. Bye.